Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. He joins us now from Canberra to talk about this lockdown in Victoria. Treasurer, thanks for your time this morning.
Nice to be with you, Paul.
Now, the Prime Minister has offered as much support as Victoria needs, we're led to believe. What has the Commonwealth Government been asked to provide at this point?
Well, we've already provided and deployed over 220 ADF personnel, and there'll be more to come. We've also deployed some 800 Commonwealth officials to help in the various health tasks. As you know, we've got some broad income and business support packages in place right across the economy that, for example, the JobKeeper and the cash flow boost together have injected more than $10 billion into the Victorian economy. So it's a combination of health supports like the 28 respiratory clinics that we've funded in Victoria that have supported more than 55,000 tests together with the various other programs that we have in place.
Treasurer, I want to ask you about JobKeeper and Jobseeker
Sure.
in a moment, but firstly, just on the ADF, are you satisfied Victoria is using the military in the best possible way, not deploying them to the towers, and we're told that they're going to be part of setting up a perimeter around Melbourne along with police? Are you satisfied those resources are being handled well by Victoria?
Look, I'm satisfied that the Victorian government will make the decisions that they need to take, and obviously the Prime Minister and the Premier have been speaking regularly through this crisis, and the Premier is aware of the support, Paul, that is available to him from the Commonwealth. Indeed, he has said publicly, acknowledged that, and said whenever he's asked the Prime Minister for support, the answer has been a yes.
And banks are extending their loan deferral scheme, but only for those in genuine need. Can you give us an example of who might qualify for that?
Well, if somebody's lost their job and they've got a residential mortgage, or indeed if their business is being closed and they've got a commercial loan, then they would be cases where the customer would need to talk to their bank, and I understand it that the bank is going to be very supportive of their customers. I mean, the initial 6-month loan deferral period has been very helpful. Some $266 billion in loans payments have been deferred. That's about 800,000 customers, about 60% of which have been residential mortgages. And so the decision by the regulator and by the banks to have this extended for another 4 months is very welcome. Treasurer,
I note the Reserve Bank made a statement yesterday. I found it interesting after hearing what's happening in Victoria. One quote was, "The pandemic was promoting firms to reconsider their business models." In Victoria, that just got a lot harder. Business got harder. What changes are you considering making to JobKeeper and Jobseeker that you can tell us about right now to provide certainty to some of those business owners we've been hearing from?
Well, the first thing to say is that the JobKeeper and Jobseeker programs are already legislated to the end of September. So even with the 6-week lockdown announced by Premier Andrews, that takes it out to the end of August.
But they're going to have, after that, there's going to be that really awkward and tough reopening measures again, which might last a couple of months past that.
And there's going to be another phase of income support, the details of which will be announced on the 23rd of July. We recognise that some sectors are going to recover more slowly than others. For example, the tourism sector, as a result of the international borders being closed. We've announced a number of sector-wide specific packages for housing, for the arts, for tourism. But we also recognise that the recent events in Victoria are going to be an impediment to the speed and the trajectory of the economic recovery across the nation.
And will you consider making that announcement sooner, particularly for those Victorians? July 23 seems a long time away now, considering people will have to make decisions about their futures in the next couple of days.
Well, people are making decisions, obviously, in the knowledge that the JobSeeker and the JobKeeper programs extend to the end of September. What we are announcing on the 23rd of July is an economic and fiscal update, which will give people, a sense of where the economy's at. And obviously, developments in Victoria are very serious. They pose not only a health risk, but also an economic challenge as well.
What are you doing with childcare in Victoria for the next 6 weeks in lockdown?
Well, Dan Tehan's already made some announcements this morning to ensure the viability and sustainability of that sector, including some flexibility in that program. Because what we want to see, Paul, is we want to see those childcare providers stay open, even when the children may not be able to attend because of some of these restrictions.
And is it very similar to what the situation was with lockdown 1?
Look, there are some small changes here. I heard Daniel Andrews talk about some of the cafes remaining open, and obviously some people can go to work, and it hasn't been applied across the whole state. As you know, it's focused on metropolitan Melbourne and some areas. But the next few weeks will be absolutely critical, Paul, because we need to stem the tide of these new cases, and if we're successful in Victoria, that will be of benefit to the whole nation.
I just want to ask you about schools finally. What do you want to see in Victoria with schools? The Premier's saying that year 10, 11 and 12 will go back next week. The rest are going to have a week off, and then we might be back into online learning. The federal government had a lot to say about schools and whether they should be open earlier. What's your stance now?
Well, this is a very fluid environment, and obviously we want to see as many kids in school as possible.
You want those schools? You want school to go back in term 3?
Well, again, these will be decisions that the state government will take based on the medical advice available to them. But if kids can get to school and be physically present, that's a lot better than learning online.
Treasurer, thanks for your time.
Good to be with you.